Hello and welcome to Meet Your Double Feature. My name is Thomas, joined as always by my brother Frank. Frank, how's it going?
Excited for the recap? Is that what this is?
Excited for the recap. That is what this is. I'm also excited. If you've been listening to our show so far, you'll know that we just finished our first season talking about forgotten films of the 1990s. And in doing so, we have reviewed 24 individual films between the two of us in just under 6 months, which is kind of nuts, to be honest.
Pretty cool.
Pretty cool. And so what we're doing for tonight's episode is both for people who've been here all along, or maybe anybody who this is their first time listening. We're just going to recap what season 1 has been about, revisit our thoughts from each pair of films that we discussed, see if our opinions on any of them have changed in any significant way. I can tease that, Frank, I think you and I have both now gone back and watched one of the movies that we asked the other person to watch. So there's at least a couple on this list that we have both seen and can compare notes on for once.
Oh yeah, that is true. I've only watched one of the ones that I recommended for you.
Something that's always been a thing with us, even before we did this show, is like, if I know a movie is good, sometimes I'll be like, Frank already saw this, so I'll just check it off in my head as well, which doesn't make any sense, but that's just how we've operated.
Goes in the shared databank.
Shared databank, which is what this is going to be, because I've also decided to rank all of the movies based on the individual scores we gave each one out of 10, so that in summary, we'll essentially have our own list of like the top 24 underrated films of the 1990s, which is in a very specific list that I don't think anybody's ever looked for, but they have it now.
You have those scores in front of you? Because I don't have them handy, so I hope
I
you
have.
do.
We're going to talk about each pair of movies in the order that the episodes came out, as a way for us to trace both the history of our conversation and just the history of the first season of us making Meet Your Double Feature. But as we go, especially if you're watching on YouTube with the video version, I'll be updating graphics throughout, showing the actual leaderboard based on the scores that we gave at the time. We do have a pretty clear number one. Only one movie in this entire list got a 10 out of 10 score from whichever of us reviewed it. So stay tuned for that in case you have not already seen which one that is.
I know.
Oh, yeah? Frank remembers.
I was there.
All right, so I guess, Frank, we'll just move straight in with the two films that we talked about in our premiere episode, Meet Your Double Feature, Season 1, Episode 1, which I think for a long time in my notes was just called The Pilot. That was where we talked about, well, I guess I'll let you go first. What was the first movie I asked you to review for the show?
Well, the title of that episode is, a title's important, which I like as like a sort of pilot episode title. So I'll just throw that out there. I like that.
I was naming the early episodes based on things we actually said in the episode. Because you say at one point, talking about your film, a title's important. And I just thought that struck me right away when listening back. It's like, oh yeah, that's it. That's our pilot.
Yeah, that's cool. And it was because I was talking about the somewhat odd title of the film, Welcome Home, Roxy, Carmichael, which in hindsight was a really interesting one to talk about for the first episode.
Possibly the weirdest movie on this list, like the most unknown. I've still, to this day, never seen anybody say a word either way about this movie, even though it has multiple like recognizable names in it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, like, I don't have much to say to revisit with Roxy Carmichael. But it is reminding me of something completely unrelated in a way. But,
before we begin, something totally different.
Something completely. Well, no, it ties in because it's the title, you know? I was like, I thought this one was an odd title. I remember positing at the time that might have been part of the reason that it was somewhat forgotten. It kind of fell in between the cracks of this era. But I just went to go see at the Academy Museum. They'll sometimes do screenings here in LA. And just yesterday, I went to go see the screening of Home Alone, and Macaulay Culkin and the director Chris Columbus were there. But I noticed while watching that movie that one of the actresses playing Kevin McAllister's sisters in that movie was played by Hilary Wolf, who you and I have a familiarity with because of that movie Step Kids.
Yeah. I think, I'll be honest, I don't think it made it. We talked about Step Kids in an episode in season 1, but I think I cut it for time, so people wouldn't have heard that yet. But
oh, that's
Step
interesting.
Kids, was a movie that we kept seeing the trailer for growing up because it was on the VHS of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze. So anytime we wanted to watch that, we had to fast forward through the trailer for Step Kids, which I guess in its original incarnation, or no, originally was called Step Kids, but then by the time it released had like a really weird different title, right?
And that's why I'm bringing it up, because it's probably one of the worst movie titles I've ever seen, honestly. It's so bad. It's like in the trailer that we saw, it was titled Step Kids, which is fine. But then it was retitled upon release to Big Girls Don't Cry, ellipses, They Get Even. Which is just like, yeah, I mean, this is
and
just...
ellipses in the middle. That's egregious.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is like, I always joke about like Panic at the Disco type song titles where it's just like a long run-on sentence almost. And like, with the whole title's important that we, talked about in the first episode, that just reminded me of this one. And this, I think, is probably the front runner in terms of like maybe worst movie title I've ever seen. So that's just what that first episode reminded me of.
So Roxy Carmichael's not the worst title you've ever seen, but it's a similar problem.
Yeah. I think that's something I talked about. Like, I thought Roxy Carmichael was fine. Like, there's movies on this list that, especially with the scoring that we did, where I would maybe go back and, like, now that I've had some time to reflect on them and seen, several more movies throughout the course of the season, that I would look at differently. Roxy Carmichael's probably not one I would, like, revisit. It's not one I would go back and watch again. It was an interesting one to do for the first episode to kind of like get our feet wet with this concept.
Yeah, because it's an aggressively 90s movie. It's a type of movie that's not made anymore. It seemed, from what you said and what I later saw in trailers, to be very like visually just obviously a 90s film. And for the record, you did give it, because we decided from the beginning to do scores out of 10, even though as people outside of this show, we don't do that and think it's usually kind of stupid. But you gave Roxy Carmichael a 6 out of 10.
Which I think is fair. I think that's fair scoring. And then, as we go on, I think we've kind of had to adjust our scoring system to be more, I don't know. It's difficult. It's a difficult thing to do to kind of narrow something down, which, like I said, is why we don't normally do it. But I think that's a fair score for Roxy Carmichael. So this one, like, I don't think I'll be watching it again, but it was fine. It was fun. Yeah.
It has Winona Ryder in a post-Beetlejuice, pre-anything else kind of role, because she was like in a lot of stuff in the 90s and then dropped off for a while and came back way later as the mom in Stranger Things. But it's funny to see something from her peak era in the 90s, her first peak, that most people probably would have no idea exists.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a big Winona Ryder fan, this would probably be one worth checking out.
If you're Winona Ryder die, if you will.
Oh, get out. Get out.
Get out. All right.
You're done.
Gonna add a sound effect of a door slamming. Yeah. Welcome home, Roxy Carmichael, 6 out of 10. Again, you can hear about that in our first episode. It is interesting. I went back and listened to some of our first episode recently. At the time of recording, we just finished and released episode 11, so the second to last for season 1. Listening to the first one's crazy because I have a background, and you and I both have backgrounds in like media production and broadcasting and film and all this other stuff. But I never sat down and tried to just like do a full audio edit before. And it's immediately, episode 1 has landed in that territory that a lot of creatives get into, where they're like, can I just delete the first several things we released? Because you like figure out things later that you end up sticking with that become more of like your template. And you just go back and you're like, God, I wish I could do this again. Can I do like a 20th anniversary remaster for that episode when we get to it?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Oh, that would be fun. What if we like redid it and then just each watched the other movie? Like you had to talk about Roxy Carmichael and I had to talk about...
that would be actually really fun. Write that down. Play the door slam again and then write that
down. Yeah.
Pivoting to the other film we talked about in episode 1. So their first review, Welcome Home, Roxy Carmichael. I asked Frank to watch that. He gave it a 6 out of 10. You asked me to watch Pump Up the Volume from 1990, starring Christian Slater as a pirate radio DJ high school boy.
Yep.
I was trying to put that all into one sentence, but it's kind of a 2-sentence summary. He is a disaffected teen in a fairly well-off neighborhood in California in the 90s who starts an underground radio station where he like speaks truth to power and kind of riles up all the kids in his school to deal with, the problems of society in their time, as well as like a villainous school administration. I gave Pump Up the Volume an 8 out of 10 when we first watched it. This is one where, given how we sort of honed in on our scoring process later, I would probably actually rank a little bit higher, maybe like a 9.
Oh, I didn't even remember that you gave it an 8. That's seems high for what I remember you saying about this movie.
It's interesting. Like, I think early on I wasn't certain if a 10 out of 10 movie was like reserved for the best, does it have to be like Lord of the Rings or Citizen Kane to get at a 10 out of 10? Or does it just need to be the best version of itself? Like, there's no way Welcome Home, Roxy Carmichael can be a 10 out of 10 if the bar is that high. So I think over time it became more of like, is this the perfect version of what this movie wanted to be? And I think that Pump Up the Volume was a very effective comedy drama that is really fun to revisit as a time capsule of the early 90s and features some surprisingly good performances. I think the only things I really knocked it for were that Christian Slater's character as this sort of prophet of the people who's trying to like explain what's wrong with the world they're all in wasn't like specific enough. Like he didn't have anything really moving to say. But in retrospect, that's like almost the point. He's a child. Like, of course, he doesn't really have the answers to any of this. He's kind of putting it on the audience and his actual audience in the story as like, we just all need to have the conversation. I don't know the answers, but we just need to try harder. So I don't know that I feel as strongly about that criticism, and that's why I maybe would bump it to like a 9.
Sure, yeah. And I mean, that almost sounds like a case where there's a difference between what like the character in the context of the story is trying to say and what the filmmaker is trying to say, like through those characters, I guess.
Yeah. I think I maybe set too high of an expectation for what that movie was supposed to be doing. But it's just like a very fun 90s movie again. Like it's fun if you're specifically trying to kind of submerge yourself in that atmosphere. Both of these movies from our first episode are just peak 90s, which is funny because they're turn of the decade and were probably produced in 1989.
Yeah, that's true. I do wonder how many, like, I mean, you and I, especially growing up in the 90s, are just such a fan of this era, like that decade of filmmaking. I wonder how many, like, big 90s movies fans there are, though. A lot of people have a lot of reverence for, like, 80s films and 70s style filmmaking. 90s almost, like a forgotten decade in a way in terms of filmmaking. So
that's a fair point. I would say that in like the broad strokes of film history, you can definitely point to larger developments about like filmmaking as an art form and how it changed in like the golden age Hollywood era and then that 70s like auteur period and the advent of the blockbuster film. And then even by the end of the 90s, you're just starting to get into these like groundbreaking VFX movies and what that was going to mean for cinema going forward. But the 90s was kind of just like a commercial peak, like you had a lot of fun movies that were sort of piggybacking off of innovations that had come before them. But yeah, I would say at that kind of high level view, there's not as much innovation during that time. But to your point, we were kids. And so we just identify with it pretty strongly.
Yeah. I'm just hoping there's a lot of other 90s movies fans out there that will appreciate.
People do like, I think a lot of people in America who grew up in the 90s have this like pride about it because pop culture was kind of booming at the time in general. There was just a lot of color and imagination in a lot of the pop culture exports of that time that people look back on as like, things were cool. We had Toys R Us and $1 McChickens. We could do whatever we wanted.
We've also pointed it out before, and I think even in some of the movies we watched this season, like it was a common thing to hear in that time period in like media, like it's the 90s, like that was such a like descriptive thing you could say. Like
you could say that up until the 2000s when the 2000s became both the decade and the century and the millennium, and it got really confusing. But up until that, I remember a line from like an episode of The Simpsons where somebody's like, Marge, it's the 90s. And I'm like, God, I want to bring that back because now we can do it. I'm going to be like, hey, it's the 20s. That thing that predated one of the largest economic crashes and then they cut me off and slammed the door again.
I think that type of language, and this is piggybacking off something I heard from, I think it was Adam Conover, his podcast that I'm a fan of. But that type of language has been replaced by generational language. Like now we talk about, boomers and millennials and Gen Z. And it's like that type of language has replaced the like sort of shared decade experience.
I guess it's because up through the 90s, when the internet was still in its infancy, there was more of like a monoculture in the world. People were more collectively shaped by things that were trending and popular, and that funnel of what was popular was a lot narrower and dictated by like what made it to the newspapers and what was on TV. Whereas now, it's harder to define yourself based on that narrow of a window of time, because like my 2010s could be so radically different from someone else's that it's easier to be like, well, were you born around this time? Because at least if you're a kid in the same span of years, you might have had more of a shared experience.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think that's maybe why I guess I was such a big fan, or just really am a big fan of films of this era, because even if it's like all of these were like 90s movies that you and I had not seen before, but they still had a real sense of familiarity to them because of the films that were a part of that monoculture. You know, they felt similar to that shared experience we had with a lot of other people. So yeah, I that's like, there's a weird like nostalgia for stuff you haven't even seen before.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Like, as soon as Pump Up the Volume starts, I'm like, I've never seen a frame of this movie, but it feels really cozy as soon as it begins, which was kind of a theme with a lot of what we watched. Which reminds me, we just did about 20 minutes on the first episode, and we have 11 more, so we're going to move on to our discussions from episode 2 of our podcast, where, because we flip who goes first every time, I gave the first review. Frank, you asked me to watch 1998's A Simple Plan from Sam Raimi. This was probably our least jokey review we've done all season. It was such a like straightforward, like, yeah, movie's pretty good, here's why.
It's not funny.
Not funny. Nothing funny about it. I think I thought it was funny because at one point someone gets killed with a shotgun and Sam Raimi made the body go like flying into the ceiling in a kind of like cartoonish manner. And that stood out to me because of how much it felt at odds with the rest of the movie. But overall, A Simple Plan is a very like serious kind of Twilight Zone-esque story about a group of men, a couple of whom are very poor and in need of a change in their life. They come across a bunch of money in the woods, and they end up spending the film trying to grapple with the moral dilemma of like, whose money is this? Is it safe for us to take it? Is it right for us to take it? And the natural consequences of that, which ends with several murders. So it's a good, solid movie. It has sort of faded from my memory since watching it, which is that intangible we talked about with the forgotten 90s films. Like, why are we not still talking about A Simple Plan? And I think in this case, a lot of it's maybe because the film felt so strongly like a book adaptation. This is where we really solidified our time to book realization theory.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a great movie. I felt a little underwhelmed by the ending, which maybe that's another part of it too. If it didn't end on a strong note, it's easier to kind of like put it behind you.
Yeah, I remember you were like, my memory is that was one of your biggest criticisms is how the movie ended and how it kind of missed the sort of easy or like narratively fulfilling off-ramps and just kind of went for something that just didn't land at all.
It went for the simplest off-ramp, and then still the off-ramp was too long. Like, the movie, with the ending it chose to go with, by being a little bit more straightforward, needed to wrap itself up sooner than it did. So it just kind of drags. And I think A Simple Plan was on track to be a 10 out of 10 with our revised scoring system of like, is this the best movie it can be? And instead I dropped it down to an 8 because I was so frustrated by that last like 20 minutes. So interesting point in the race to fall apart, but it kind of did.
Oh, you gave both of the first movies I recommended to you like high scores. What happened? You just started, you got more critical after that? You just started.
What happened to you? You started picking worse movies.
I don't know. These are blind picks.
Yeah, well, pick blind better. That's the premise. Yeah, at the end of episode 2, because we started keeping track of the total scores. So like the first movie I gave yours an 8. The second movie I picked, I gave you an 8. So at that point you had a 16 out of 20. And we ended up with scores out of a total possible of like 120. And you were so far in the lead at the beginning that it was pretty funny that it completely flipped. And then right before the end, we were like almost neck and neck again. It's a tight race.
Yeah.
So what was your second movie? He's thinking about it. It was your favorite movie, The Grifters.
Oh, The Grifters. Yeah. I've brought this movie up throughout the entire season jokingly as like the low point in terms of like films. I've forgotten it was the second one of the season. I just did not care for this movie at all. I almost have like a weird fondness for it now in terms of like how much I've ragged on it. But it was oddly unpleasant, and I remember my biggest takeaway was just that like visually and tonally and in terms of the pacing, it felt like it was like if you took like a great crime movie, like a Scorsese type film, and just like stripped all of the flavor and filmmaking expertise away and like cinematography. It just didn't have any of that, you know? It was just like, it just had this blandness to it that made everything that was happening even more uncomfortable and kind of dull.
It's interesting that you bring up Scorsese because I think he was listed as a producer. So he had some contribution to the film, but absolutely was not in the chair for this one. I think it was a Stephen Frears movie. I did actually. So I was doing some holiday shopping because it's in December still when we're recording this, and I was looking at the yearly like Criterion Collection DVD sale because I wanted to pick up a few things, and I nearly, as a joke, bought you the 4K Grifters Criterion Collection DVD because I just thought it'd be really funny.
That is funny. That's interesting that it's in the Criterion Collection, honestly, because I did have
well-regarded movie.
It is, and it's interesting when you find yourself at sort of that impasse where it's a film that is very critically well received, and I think oftentimes if it's something that's critically well received or really popular, I can usually understand why to an extent, but just recognize like maybe this just didn't click for me. And I can kind of see that with Grifters, but at the same time, I'm like, I really don't get it. I don't think this is a good film. And so it does baffle me a bit that it does have such high critical acclaim.
It is funny, like the nature of our format, the idea that we pick a movie that we think will be good, but that we can't verify because we haven't seen it and know as little as possible, leads to these like weird impasses where you can't really be affected by like, well, I have to say it's good because other people like it, or vice versa. You get kind of an authentic experience watching the movie because you just aren't always certain if even it's popular or not. I thought Grifters would be a win because as the person selecting it, I saw that it had good critical reviews. So it was really funny to me in recording that episode how much you disliked it.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the fun of the show, though. Like, people talk about a lot the like so bad it's good movies. And it's interesting / disappointing when a movie falls just short of like crossing that line into being so bad it's good and winds up just being so bad. Like
so bad. So bad it stinks.
So bad it's bad. But yeah, I mean that's, like I said, that's part of the fun of the show. So
the other funny thing is that for the most part, as we mentioned, after recommending that the other host watch a movie, we often do not go back and check out the movie ourselves. So my entire concept of Grifters is just what you told me in the review. And I'll probably never watch the movie, but I cannot ever forget talking about John Cusack's really low return grifts where he'd spend like 30 minutes and risk his life to steal like $4 from somebody.
Dude, it was like less than that. He was stealing like quarters off people. Like it was ridiculous.
Like if that character was around right now, he'd be trying to take advantage of them, like taking the penny out of production in the US, and he'd be like, how do I get everybody's extra pennies and I can turn them into dimes?
That's too big of a grift for him though, man. That was his whole thing, is no big grifts.
No big grifts. He's like, I'm going to make less than minimum wage doing deceptive. It's like, go get a part-time job, Mr. Cusack.
And then the movie almost didn't even deliver on something it was promising in a way. Because a big thing in that movie was his girlfriend was trying to convince him to do like a big grift. And then the story never gets to that point. They get interrupted before then, because characters start dying. And there's only 3 main characters. So like that was a whole thing for his character, was like, I only do the small time stuff. I'm not going to do any big stuff. And like through flashbacks, you see the type of bigger grifts that she had done. But in terms of these characters, like they never get to that point even, which is...
That's weird.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
makes me picture like an Ocean's 11 style movie where you spend the first 2 acts plotting out a heist, but then instead of doing the heist, they just all die and it never happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they're just like, man, that would be hard. Let's not do that. Like,
Yeah.
let's just
Turns out, bank vault, no matter how much montage editing we do, can't get in there.
can't get in there. Can't montage our way around that one.
Can't montage our way in. Yeah. So Grifters is the worst. Surprisingly, not the lowest rated movie of the year. You gave it, at the time, a 3 out of 10. Although you did tell me later you wish you'd scored it lower.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, it's like I said, that I joked about this one so much because it became like the basement, you know, it became like the floor in terms of scoring, and 3 felt harsh at the time. I mean, yeah, in hindsight, maybe it's a 2. Like, going below a 2, we've talked about this recently too, that would be really, really, it would have to be offensive, like actually offensive, I think, to score lower than a 2.
Yeah, we did mention, like, if you go that low, you're so much more likely to come back around the other side, Pac-Man style, and just end up at the top instead because you've made, like, avant-garde art.
Totally. Yeah, totally. The So Bad It's Good. The So Bad It's really
So Bad
good,
It's
almost.
Good.
Yeah.
Grifters decided to stay in its lane. So Bad It's Bad. Okay, moving from there into our 3rd episode. I'll call this, for the superfans out there, maybe our most underrated episode in that it has literally been consumed by the least people. Just coincidentally, just looking at our metrics, I think fewer people saw this one, and I think it's because I gave it sort of a bad title. I was still trying to figure out titles at this point, and I thought it would be funny to try to like combine elements of both movies as if it was the title of one big movie. So, our 2 films for episode 3. I, in an attempt to rebound from a horrible pick with Grifters, asked you to watch a Japanese kaiju film called Gamera Guardian of the Universe. And you asked me to watch an ensemble cast comedy film called Soapdish about a soap opera production. And so I called the episode something like Soap Opera Digest did, like in parentheses, because I was like, digested, because Gamera ate him. And then after that came out, I was like, nobody's following my logic with this at all.
I got it. I understood. So
Frank got it. So maybe some people will get it. But yeah, that's my that's probably my worst promotional job was that title for that 3rd episode. I guess if this was the 3rd one, then you went first with the review. So Frank, we'll go straight in. Tell me a little bit about Gamera.
Well, I mean, spoilers for what you teased at the beginning. This is the movie I gave a 10 out of 10.
Heck yeah, it is.
Yeah, it was the only one of the season that got a perfect score. And I'll stand by that, honestly. Like, Gamera was just a blast, and no pun intended. And
I don't get it. Put it in the
title. Because he ate him. You get it?
Because he ate him. Play the door slam again.
You're gonna have to actually find that sound effect.
I know. I hate this bit where me in the recordings gives myself work to do in post-production as a joke. Because
like, this guy's a jerk.
This guy's the worst. I'm going to be awake at 2 o'clock in the morning, the day before this is supposed to go out, like, door slam effect. What?
But yeah, anyway, Gamera was, like you said, it was that example of a film that was a 10 out of 10 in what it was trying to be. It was sort of a peak piece of that genre of filmmaking, of like kaiju filmmaking. I don't remember what it's called now, but during the episode we talked about there's sort of a broader umbrella term that type of filmmaking falls under.
Oh, is it like tokusatsu or something like that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that sounds right. But yeah. So I mean, I really had like almost nothing but positive things to say about the film, which is funny. I would think, like, if somebody were to watch it and be like, what the heck? This is their 10 out of 10 film? It's a guy in a costume, like, running around. Like,
right.
You know?
That was the whole thing we talked about, was like the cultural context in Japan, where there's been 6 million Godzilla movies and also like the Power Rangers shows and all those, Super Sentai in Japan and everything else in that genre. There's just a general acceptance of a type of filmmaking where you just put a guy in a rubber suit and say he's Godzilla. But like, everything in the movie was self-serious, and that's what allows it to still work as like a somewhat dramatic piece of filmmaking. It's like an intentional sort of contrast that if you open yourself up to, I think it'd be really fun.
Yeah, and it looked great in its own way too. I mean, it had really strong cinematography. Like the scenes outside of the kaiju action looked good, and the kaiju action sequences looked good too. I remember praising like one shot in particular that like I think they achieved something visually that had like a really grand scale to it, and like was just a super cool looking shot, like something you would almost expect out of like, I compared it a lot to like the first Jurassic Park film because it came out around the same time, and just visually there's a huge contrast between those two. So yeah, I think it almost feels like a film from an older era because it's using like a style of filmmaking that like way predates the 90s. But this was almost like the peak version of that because it was made in that era.
Which is what we kept saying about the 90s in general, is it felt like the culmination of a bunch of filmmaking norms that were about to all be disrupted. Like there were so many things that you would do a certain way that became immediately outmoded by some sort of computer effects alternative that watching something like Gamera, I imagine, still haven't seen it, is really rewarding for someone like you who is a filmmaker and appreciates like the artistry that goes into putting something obviously fake on top of something obviously real and trying to find a way to make those things blend.
Yeah, absolutely. That I think was a big part of it for me. It was just appreciating the production value and the production elements that went into making this movie. And it just felt so genuine because of that. You know, it felt like I don't know, like a labor of love in a way to make Gamera. So yeah, I stand by that. That's a 10 out of 10 for this season. Gamera was great. That is one I would rewatch again.
10 out of 10 would watch again. Gamera.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be updating this visually for those watching on the YouTube version. As we go, I'm going to populate each film in the spot that it ended up in an actual like leaderboard of the top 24 forgotten 90s movies. So you'll notice that Gamera now holds the top spot and will for the remainder of the discussion. It is apparently the most underrated forgotten film of the 1990s.
Yeah, it's almost like cheating because it's so hyper specific in what type of film that it is. But yeah, I just like no notes for Gamera again.
No notes. It was that was also our shortest episode, and I think part of it was for that reason. Gamera really was like, what all do you need me to say if the movie's this good? So that was Gamera. My film, as I mentioned briefly, was 1991's Soapdish, which was something I've never heard of. I'd spent so many weeks at this point looking up 90s movies to like pitch for the show. Never saw anybody talk about Soapdish. Really, really odd relic of that time because it's an ensemble cast with a lot of recognizable names, some of whom are like edited out of the movie and barely appear, others of whom give like weirdly uninspired performances. And ultimately, the movie itself just feels like the people making it gave up on it, like while making it. It's a comedy that's not funny. And what else do you need to say?
Yeah, this is the one that I think I have forgotten the most about out of all the ones we've talked about, I guess. Like, I remember you really didn't like it, so.
It's visually impressive at times. The whole thing is like a satire about the people producing a popular daytime soap opera and how their lives as characters become as overtly dramatic and silly as those of their soap opera character counterparts. And you do get some good performances in there too. Like Kevin Kline's in it and he gives a really strong comedic performance, like probably the only person in the movie to do anything genuinely laugh out loud funny. But everything else is so plotting and uninteresting. And the movie tries to take you on twists and turns, but just the final product doesn't feel like it was made by people who have an affinity for soaps, which I think would have made all the difference. It felt like a funny idea that they handed to somebody who didn't know enough to make authentic in any way. So it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other. And I think I even knocked an extra point off because I gave it a 3 out of 10. I knocked an extra point off for having like a trans panic ending, which as we talked about in that episode was somewhat common in the 90s.
Yeah, I think that was the reason I picked it was because I thought it was a funny sort of like sandbox to play in terms of like you could do a lot of entertaining things, I would think, about like a behind the scenes of a soap opera. But if you sort of have a reverence in a way for that genre of television, which is so unique in its own way, Like, so it feels like almost spiteful or hateful in a way, the way that they handled it.
It did not read as fun, or it was like the people making it had fun talking about soaps. Like, I think it was a great pick on your end as a blind recommendation because I've not worked in television, but I have worked in live event production for many years. I did that for a living, and there's so much like interesting, unique stuff about that kind of job, like the weird, fast-paced, so many moving pieces kind of role where you're always on your feet and things are always going wrong and you're trying to fix them in real time. Those things can be so interesting, but this movie found a way to make them visually compelling, but not interesting on the page. So Soap Dish, big disappointment. I gave it a 3 out of 10, which ended up leaving it in the same tier as the Grifters, but having only seen one, I don't know which one's actually worse.
Yeah, and we're not going to find out because I don't think either of us want to rewatch either of those movies.
No, that would be, yeah. If we get to 1,000 views, we'll watch The Grifters again. Now, with that, we'll go on to episode 4 for Meet Your Double Feature, which I'll be honest, this was the first one we made that I thought, like, this is our show. I felt like production-wise, conversation-wise, we really hit something with this one. And I'm going to guess it's because we both picked silly action movies.
Which is very much in our wheelhouse of films we appreciate.
It's exactly what I think we both assumed we would be talking about when we pitched this as a premise, because growing up, there was never an action movie we would pass up from that time period. You could just be like, hey, I got this goofy one. It's probably awful. You want to watch it anyway? And we'd be like, of course I do. And so...
Well, sorry, just to interject real quick. It was also the era of the action star, which I don't think exists in the same way now. Like, even looking at the leads of these two movies we picked, you know, Jean-Claude Van Damme and Kurt Russell. And, I mean, you look at just the entire cast of, like, the Expendables films. And it was just like all of those guys were in multiple action franchise films. And so many of them definitely bleed over from the 80s, but all the way throughout the 90s as well.
Yes, they mostly inhabited those two. You did have some who came into their own more in the 90s, like Jean-Claude Van Damme, because that was my movie, was Double Impact. His breakout role was Bloodsport, which was in the late 80s, but like the rest of his career peak was all in the 90s. So he came about later than like a Sylvester Stallone or a Schwarzenegger. But gosh, Double Impact is a weird one. I ended up giving it kind of a bad review. I gave it a 4 out of 10 because it takes all of the things that should work for a Jean-Claude Van Damme goofball action movie and just doesn't let them shine. I mean, he's supposed to play two characters, even though he's not at this stage of his career a very good actor. That should be funny. Like, we should have had like two really over-the-top performances just to make sure they felt different. And instead we get like, you know, Jean-Claude Van Damme and Jean-Claude Van Damme, but with his hair a different way.
Yeah. This one, I didn't remember you scored this one a 4 out of 10 because I just remember us having a really fun discussion about this movie.
We got into a lot of bits about the two Jean-Claudes and about their like differing lifestyle and how it ended with us trying to explain how one of them was going to get canceled for being a homophobe because one of them is a homophobe in the movie and how it would affect his standing socially in a crime syndicate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Canceled from the crime syndicate specifically.
Yeah.
Like, that was the one thing they didn't stand for.
Yeah. That's it. Double Impact, it didn't have enough martial arts, which was also a big, like, knock. Some of Jean-Claude's movies from that time, he seemingly tried to push more into, like, I'm not just a karate guy. I'm just, like, a gun-toting action star, like a lot of my peers. And he's, like, good enough at that, but it just always feels like an incomplete movie of his when it doesn't feature more interesting martial arts choreography on top of it.
Well, I think that's also an interesting thing about this being the era of the action star is that they were all in a way in competition with one another to an extent. Especially there was like a famous feud between Jean-Claude and, oh gosh, what's his name?
Steven Seagal.
Steven Seagal, thank you. Yeah. And I think that probably like directly affected the films that they made sometimes. I don't remember exactly what movie it was, but there was like Arnold and Stallone was like probably the top feud of the era.
That was your main event, you know, your world championship bouts.
Totally. And I remember there was like, I don't remember the details exactly, but like one of them like tricked the other into taking a role because like he made, I think it was like Stallone made Schwarzenegger think he was interested in the role, even though it was like a dumb movie. And then Schwarzenegger took it just so that Stallone wouldn't have it. But like Stallone had like tricked him because he thought it was stupid in the first place. Like,
oh yeah, I think it was the reverse. I think
oh, okay, sorry.
Stallone got tricked into appearing in a movie called Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, which was this like horrendous police action comedy movie that nobody liked. And it was exactly what you said. Schwarzenegger tricked him into taking it by acting like he was really gunning for the role, and Stallone was like, I got one over on you, and then he was just in like a total flop movie, which is so funny because on paper it's like, it's just one movie, you make a lot, but it's like, can you imagine having to go to work every day for months to shoot this stupid movie? Like, how far into production before Stallone do you think was like, wait a minute?
Oh yeah, well it happens. I mean, you talked about that recently on our pirate episode with, I'm blanking on
Cutthroat Island.
Yes. And how she didn't want to be in that movie, seemingly. And like you said, like production, you're there 12 hours a day. Like you got to show up. And if it's something that you really hate, like I'd be interested to see that Stallone movie and see what kind of performance he gives.
It is funny.
Yeah.
Because you have to tap into real emotion to be an actor. Even a action movie hero, you have to tap into some kind of emotion. And if you're feeling a really strong, real emotion, sometimes that does come through on screen. So in that case, that might be funny to rewatch at some point. For the sake of Double Impact, it's not like a terrible movie, but it is just the least interesting Jean-Claude movie from that period that I have personally seen. There's nothing like terrible about it. It's certainly a step above something like Soapdish or Grifters, but it just like, watch anything else that he's made, you know?
He makes entertaining films. Like, this is not to, like, I've enjoyed quite a few Jean-Claude Van Damme films. I think they're fun in a very campy way, usually.
Go watch Lionheart. Lionheart's an underrated one. It's not Bloodsport, which is the obvious pick, but it's like a really solid movie that he stars in.
Yeah, Lionheart's awesome. Yeah, I think you actually recommended that one to me a while ago, and I checked it out and really enjoyed it.
Lionheart's good, also a 90s movie. So that was Double Impact. I asked you to watch a Kurt Russell sci-fi movie. And this was a funny one because we've talked a lot about like the difference between popular critical consensus and our own feelings. And I knew going in that this movie had really bad reviews. Like in some places it was below 20% average score. But I was like, nah, Frank's gonna like it. It's got his favorite actor, Kurt Russell. It's made by the guy who directed all those Resident Evil movies that he's always trying to get me to watch. It's gonna be a perfect storm.
Well, and it was. I mean, like this is, I guess, the opposite of Grifters, where I disagree with the reviews, but in the opposite direction. I think this movie's awesome. Remind me, what did I score this one?
You gave Soldier a 6 out of 10, but it was like it was an affectionate 6. You were like, you know what? This movie does not have a lot going on, but it's perfectly watchable. And I do think that for either one of us, anything above a 5 means the movie's like good enough. Like I wouldn't steer clear of a movie because one of us gave it a 6. Usually that just means like, yeah, it's okay.
Totally. And this is one where I think as I've gotten farther away from it, I would have scored this higher. I think Soldier is one of my favorite movies that we watched this season.
It was a funny conversation too, though. We really got into the weeds with Soldier because of the like nameless, emotionless guys who at one point I genuinely thought were trying to tell me that all of them had been named Todd, just with different numbers at the end. Right. I thought it was like Todd 117, Todd 118. And that just created a glimmer for me of like, that's so funny. I can only imagine. And then you're like, no, they're not all named Todd, but I wouldn't let that go for the rest of the review.
Well, that's the thing about the movie though, man. It just had so much uniqueness to it, which is always like something I'm going to appreciate. You know, I enjoyed it even more when I looked into like the behind the scenes elements and sort of like the story of the production itself and how it very directly connected to Blade Runner, which is one of my favorite films. Like
literally in the same fictional universe as Blade Runner.
Yeah, it was the same writer. He was writing them like at the same time, and he like intentionally made connections between the two. So this one is like a cult classic type film that I think really deserves that recognition, because I think it defies those bad ratings that it got upon release. Like I really think that those are unfair. And I talked about it a bit in the review. It did, like, there were some things story to the production that did affect the final outcome of the film, because they had sets that they had built and wanted to do visually, like the backgrounds were all going to be practical, but I believe it was like a tornado or a hurricane like destroyed the sets that they were building, and so they had to like green screen a lot of like the larger landscapes, which obviously is going to hurt it visually, especially when they had a much more grandiose vision for how they wanted the film to look, which that would have been really cool to see. But, you know, that's just like the way filmmaking goes. You got to roll with the punches, basically.
Life, yeah. So much of the time, a movie that doesn't turn out well is because people did not have the means or the time to make what they originally intended. I mean, that makes me think back to like when Peter Jackson had to take over the Hobbit movies on absolutely zero notice and had almost no time for pre-production, and was basically taking over in the middle of Guillermo del Toro's pre-production. So you ended up with those Hobbit movies that everybody hated because they were like giant bloated CGI messes. And it's like, yeah, if you'd given the director the proper amount of time to make another trilogy, it would probably look a lot better. And same with this. Like, the original intention was they were aiming high, and then they just kind of had to salvage it as they went along.
Yeah, there's a great quote, which I'll paraphrase because I don't remember it exactly, but it's from George Lucas, actually. And, you know, he said, like, it's not about, like, how great a filmmaker you are, it's how adaptive a filmmaker you are, because there's always going to be those hurdles. And he's like, you can't put, like a prompt at the beginning of the movie saying, like, oh, well, this didn't work out because the actor was sick that day, or yada, yada, yada. You just have to show them the final product. And
then he said, Jar Jar is the key.
Yeah.
Also, on top of that, those are my two things I have to say.
These are the two things I want people to remember me for.
Yeah.
So yeah, Soldier, like I said, one of my favorite movies that I watched this season, and to me feels higher than a 6. So in retrospect, this is one I would have scored higher.
Makes sense. Okay, moving into episode 5. This is a weird one for... Speaking of production issues, geez, we almost lost this episode completely. Like, we almost had to skip it, which in a normal movie review podcast would be like such a non-issue, but we, of course, had to create continuity between episodes where we announce which movies we're talking about at the end of one episode to queue up the next one. And we just had so many problems where we were recording the episode and we talked about Deep Cover, which was your movie. That recording went fine. Except we found out later your microphone, like the wrong microphone was being picked up. So your audio sounded way too quiet, and I had to like really crank it up in post. And then my review just got corrupted and we lost it completely.
Oh yeah, that's right. So audiences have never heard the original review that we did for your film.
Yes, which is pretty funny too, because going into this episode, we were finishing up episode 4. You had forgotten to pick a movie for me to watch for next time, and you just came in all sheepishly and were like, you want to watch a Woody Allen musical? And I was like, oh, cool. What a great idea. I did have to watch a stupid Woody Allen musical, and we talked about it for an hour and a half, but my computer was like overheating or something, so the audio was captured, but it was garbled beyond recognition. I spent days trying to salvage it through like an AI editor that would remove these like layers of sound that were messing it up. Which I honestly regret, because I try to avoid using AI tools for anything in this production because they're just worthless and they use up so much energy. But I tried to salvage that because I was like, well, people need to hear it. And then instead we just recorded like a brief summary that was like a 15-minute conversation, which of all the movies to lose, I'm not even mad that we lost that Woody Allen one. That movie sucked.
Yeah, that one, we talked about this at the time, but neither of us, just more so coincidentally than anything else, have really seen any Woody Allen films. And he's a very influential filmmaker of that era, but a problematic one as well.
I mean, if you Google Woody Allen's name today, it's probably going to autofill with like Woody Allen, Epstein Island. So it's like, of course we don't want to, of course we don't want to celebrate him right now. But yeah, Frank, you're right that like in the 70s and 80s, it was like he was making tons of extremely well-regarded films that we just happened to have not seen even before all of that came out. And then coincidentally, the one you selected for me to watch was just like awful. It was his attempt at a musical where he deliberately hired people who couldn't sing or like instructed them not to sing correctly on purpose because he thought that was like cute. And it just makes the movie so painful to watch that by the time it was over, I was like, why have you done this to me?
Well, and it was also the type of musical where it wasn't original songs either,
Yeah.
which I don't know if there's a specific name for that type of musical, but there are ones that are good that have done that, but they were just using existing songs and singing like really bad covers of them, essentially.
It was pointless. The movie as an exercise was pointless, and Woody Allen's character in it was creepy, and Woody Allen the man is creepy. Surprisingly, I gave it a 3. Like, this was in that category where I think any impulse to rank it lower would have been unfair, because it's like, well, the movie didn't do these things. Woody Allen allegedly did. But I still just hated watching it so much that I was like, whatever, this is boring. A couple of the songs were fun because Woody Allen and his team didn't write them, and they were just real pieces of music. But yeah, very boring. I guess we skipped over Deep Cover. You kind of liked Deep Cover, as I recall.
Deep Cover is actually another one that I would put in the same camp as Soldier, that the further I've gotten away from it, the more I appreciate it. And I think even over the course of the review about like talking through the movie, I was like, you know what, actually I really liked Deep Cover. It was good.
Which is funny, because I think eventually you scored it a 5 out of 10.
And that's probably because when I started watching it, I like the first act of the movie, and this is maybe more on me than the movie, honestly. Like, it just wasn't clicking with me, and it was like sort of a dark subject matter. And so like early on, I had the same thought. I was like, why does he keep doing this to me? Why does he keep picking these depressing...
This is our adversarial stage of the podcast.
Like I don't want to watch these depressing crime movies. But Deep Cover had something to say. It was so stylistic. It was the exact opposite of Grifters in this sense, that it was so stylistic. I mean, you can even tell just looking at like the cover art for the film, like the poster, its use of like color throughout the film and the lighting and the performances, everything about it is just sort of like dripping with like style. But it just had an oddness to it that like, and a uniqueness that I appreciated by the end of the film, but took me a while to get into. So that's why I think it sort of landed in like a middle ground score for me at the time. But retrospectively, I'm like, no, Deep Cover, that's good filmmaking. It's unique. It's entertaining in its own way. You had very charismatic leads and performances from, you know, Lawrence Fishburne and Jeff Goldblum. So this also I would score higher now. Deep Cover, yeah, like of everything we've talked about so far, Gamera again always kind of being an outlier because that's so hyper specific, but like these other ones is just sort of being just general films. Soldier and Deep Cover were two of my favorites, I think.
Yeah. I mean, we did also, again, the movies that I don't watch but that I recommend, my opinion is basically like how fun were they to talk about, and we definitely were on a kick talking about that detail where Lawrence Fishburne's character had never had alcohol before because he was afraid about becoming an addict like his dad, but then he just, like, you tried to summarize it as like, he tried alcohol and it's pretty good. I just thought
that's a line in the movie. That is that's literally, he's like, there's a scene where he's like drinking, and one of the other characters who knows he doesn't drink, he was like, you drinking now or something? He's like, yeah, I tried it. It's pretty good. And then he just like gets in a car and drives away. And it's
pretty good. We really latched on to that as like Larry Fishburne. Alcohol good? Question mark.
Yeah. Oh, he is credited as Larry Fishburne too. That's another sort of fun little tidbit about that movie. There was a lot of unintentionally funny stuff too in that one because it was so hyper serious. But then some stuff, there was also that side character who kept talking about Terminator 2. Like,
right. So weird.
It's that kind of stuff where you get into just like, what?
Yeah, like, auteur filmmaking. Where
right,
you
exactly.
Be like, I don't understand the motivation. I can't imagine anybody else would have done this.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah, Deep Cover,
Deep cover.
Good? Question mark?
Deep cover good?
Pretty
Alcohol
good.
confirmed?
Deep cover equals alcohol?
Yeah. Well, we'll find out. So I'm glad that that episode still exists and is now in a very easy to listen to state, because I did not try to include my AI recovered audio of us talking about Woody Allen. It sounded like Soundwave from Transformers. Like that entire half would have been so distorted and bad. Glad I did not do that. Anyway, 6 out of 10, episode 6 out of 12 for season 1. Another good one that I look back on pretty fondly. I think I went first for this one because I ended the previous episode talking about Woody Allen. Frank, you asked me to watch 1997's Jackal, The Jackal, which was a weird one because it was a remake of a much more popular and well-liked film from the 70s that changed so much about that movie and its source material novel that all of the people involved in the earlier productions begged them to change the title of this one. They were like, "You're not making The Jackal. You're making something else. Don't call it The Jackal." And then whoever was making it was like, "You know what? I'm going to call it The Jackal even harder."
I mean, did we ever get to the bottom of why? Just because it was such a different narrative that they were opposed to it? Or
It's a completely different story. They change all of the locations. The only elements that are the same across all versions are the story follows a professional assassin traveling to a different country to arrange a very high-profile murder against a public individual. And the story follows that person's meticulous preparation while also cutting to the law enforcement group trying to track them down. So it's sort of an evenly balanced story, giving you the hero and the villain's perspective at the same time. And this one just centered everything in America and made it about the Russian mafia in the fall of the USSR, the wake of all of that. It was a weird pivot that tried to introduce a bunch of 90s specific tech gadgets and stuff too. And as I talked about at the time, it's the perfect 5 out of 10 movie, which is what I gave it, 5 out of 10. Because it just doesn't do enough wrong to make you turn the movie off, but it stays so close to that point for its entire runtime.
Yeah, this one, just even thinking back on it, falls into a pretty nebulous area for me, where some of these, it's interesting, when you're describing the film to me, I can get sort of a visual for it in my head, in terms of what type of movie it would be. And I think I have that for The Jackal, but it also just feels like nothing at the same time.
The Jackal, yeah, it is nothing. It's a very impermanent feeling watching the movie where you're sometimes if you don't pay close attention to something, you walk away feeling like you only have a vague sense of what was happening. You could put your full attention on The Jackal and still feel that way when it's over, because it just isn't, it's so shallow. It's a very shallow story that is told relatively effectively, but has nothing to say. So at the end, you're like, I guess that was a movie. I think Bruce Willis was there.
I think he gave a pretty sleepy performance, too, from what I remember you saying.
Super sleepy. Your two leads, we had Bruce Willis hanging out by himself, doing a really boring, quiet man performance. And then we had Richard Gere doing an Irish accent that he couldn't land. So both of our leads were kind of messing things up. It just, I don't know. Maybe my opinion of this has actually worsened. At the time, I was like, super, take it or leave it. I had no qualms about watching it. But with a couple of months removed, I'm like, The Jackal? I don't think I'd ever tell anybody to watch it now.
That's a bummer.
All right, over to you. Episode 6, I asked you to watch Doc Hollywood from 1991, which, as I recall, I think I picked it out because it has Michael J. Fox in it in one of his lead film roles post Back to the Future. Obviously, his career in Hollywood was very adversely affected by his Parkinson's, so he dropped out of the public eye for a time. And I just thought this was interesting. This was later stage Michael J. Fox in something that probably not a lot of people remember.
Yeah, and that was my biggest praise that I had for the film was Michael J. Fox. He, even thinking back on it now, it's a pretty mediocre film in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But he elevates it so much. And that's an interesting thing when, a film relies so heavily on a single performance. Something like Pirates of the Caribbean comes to mind, where it's Johnny Depp's performance as Jack Sparrow completely steals the show in that movie, but it's a solid movie otherwise. everything else going on
Right.
is great. This movie is not bad in any way. It's just lands in a very mediocre area in most other aspects, except for Michael J. Fox. He's just amazing. And it's a comedy. Like, it's a very, like, family-friendly comedy, but he's so funny, and he has a great ability to switch between being comedic and serious and just whatever like the narrative calls for. He can sort of switch seamlessly between those things.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate it a lot for that, especially to, like you said, it's a movie of his that maybe not a lot of people have seen. So
if you check out our review, you'll hear a lot of that, a lot of Frank talking up what a good performer Michael J. Fox is, but then also a lot of short shaming, as I recall, really leaning into short king Michael J. Fox jokes in what I think was a pretty tasteless display on the part of our hosts.
No. I think I think the point I was getting at is that he owns it in a way that I compared him to like a Tom Cruise, for example, who I don't even know if this may be a totally unsubstantiated claim, but I've heard there's a lot of camera trickery to make him appear taller than he actually is in a lot of his films. And they don't do that with Michael J. Fox. He stands on business as a short king. And
stands on business and sometimes a milk crate.
He doesn't, though. That's the thing. He does not.
Sorry, we're better than this.
Yes. They tilt down the camera.
Yeah.
Which fun fact, this is just a pet peeve of mine. I hear everybody do it, even people that work in filmmaking. You don't pan up and down, you pan left and right, and you tilt up and down. So if the camera goes in a vertical direction, that's a camera tilt. And if it goes left to right, that's a camera pan.
What's a Dutch angle? Anyway, no, absolutely. That is correct. I passed a film vocabulary test one time by getting that correct. I recall how that works.
A film vocabulary? What do you mean? What was that for?
I took film studies courses in college. I didn't get a full-blown film degree like you did. But for some reason, in one of my classes, it was like a third-level course. They gave us like a child's vocabulary test where you just had to match words to definitions, and it was just about like film terminology. And people like failed it. And I just was like, what? This is the most basic stuff like that was in there. It's like pan versus tilt. What is a jib shot? Who's Michael J. Fox?
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so I mess it up too. It's a very common. It's just like the way people naturally speak.
No, absolutely. Because ultimately, it's not something that getting wrong will actually confuse anybody. But it's just like technically, actually,
yeah. Yeah, so just to be annoying, I thought I'd throw that there in the end.
Annoying, yeah. Just to distract from all of my short shaming, I thought I'd...
Yeah, exactly. That too.
Yeah. All right, well, that is our recap of the first half of season 1. That's 6 episodes in, 6 more to go. So we're going to head into our intermission now, and then when we return, we will recap the second half of our movie review adventures. So we'll be right back. Okay, coming back for the second half of our Season 1 recap here on Meet Your Double Feature. Frank, Episode 7, the beginning of our second half, possibly my favorite episode of Season 1. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. This is the episode, someone asked me recently, to send them an episode to just jump in with, and I think this is the one I would recommend to most people if you just want to get an idea of what the show is, and I think it's one of our most entertaining ones.
It contains multitudes. First off, the movie I asked you to watch, Shootfighter, Fight to the Death, is a B-movie martial arts action flick starring one of the guys from Bloodsport and 2 of the guys from Karate Kid. So like such a goofy film. And then the movie you asked me to watch was like an auteur art film from Wong Kar-wai.
Yeah.
I just was like, that can't be this episode. Who wants to hear about both of those things in that order?
I do. Me.
And we did. And not only that, even just that initial discrepancy aside, you, through no fault of your own, watched the wrong movie.
Yeah, thank you for pointing out it was through no fault of my own. It was a comedy of errors that led to me watching 2 Shootfighter movies for that review. And the one that I watched first was way worse than the original one. So I'm very glad that was not the one we wound up talking about for most of the episode.
Because it was what? It was like the streaming service that you watched it on said it was called Shootfighter 1. Even when the movie began, the like sub-menu called it Shootfighter 1. But then the movie, which doesn't reveal its title card until it's over, was Shootfighter 2.
Yeah. No, it was like I Googled it. It was like typed in the full title of the original film and maybe like streaming afterwards. And then I clicked the first link. It was on one of those like free with ads services. And yeah, like it labeled it as that original title. And it wasn't until the very end of the film that I realized that was not the movie that I had been watching the entire time.
Crazy stroke of luck to have that happen in this context, that it was like captured on the show.
Yeah, I wound up watching them back to back. I needed like extra time to go back and watch the original film.
Right.
So
you texted me and you were like, hey, can we record tomorrow instead? And I was like, sure thing, whatever. And then I found out later that's the reason why.
Yeah. So that's a fun. I specifically revealed it that way in the recording of the episode too. So I think that's fun.
Super funny.
Do you want me to talk about Shootfighter a bit? Because
yeah, well, I mean, you liked Shootfighter 1 quite a bit.
Yeah, I think I gave this movie a 9 out of 10, which
you did.
Crazy. Cuckoo bananas.
Cuckoo bananas.
It's so much fun though. Like I loved it. Like honestly, both these movies, like you said, like who wants both of these things? Like this is like inside you there are 2 wolves. like
yeah. One is very moody and the other one wants to kick things.
Like, dude, it's just like, this is like the 2 ends of the spectrum of like my film interests, you know? Just give me that really campy, fun, silly martial arts movie. And then give me something that's just like deep and weird and like emotional and sad, like, and like visually compelling. Like these are very different types of films.
Because the one I watched was Fallen Angels from 1995, the Wong Kar-wai film, which other films of his are maybe more recognizable to people. He directed In the Mood for Love, which I think got like an Academy Award nomination. Even the film that predates this one, Chungking Express, I think has a little bit more reach in the West, at least. So Fallen Angels was like less popular in his filmography, but it was a challenging watch. I mean, watching the movie, I was like, how am I going to talk about this without sounding like a big dumb idiot? But it was fun, and our review actually turned out really engaging, I think. It was just, it's a hard movie to summarize my thoughts on because there was a lot happening in it, but I think it was worth watching. It was the type of challenging experience that I like to have watching films, unless I'm in the mood to watch Shootfighter.
Yeah, exactly. You can go either way. That's how it is for me too. It's like sometimes, like you have to be in the right mood to watch a movie that's going to challenge you. I mean, I'm sure we've mentioned this on the podcast before, but like that's one of the really interesting things about films to me is the dichotomy of like art is meant to challenge your way of thinking, whereas entertainment is meant to reinforce it, and films are both in a way. So it's like these contrasting ideas.
I do think this combined was our highest rated scoring episode, because you gave Shootfighter a 9 out of 10, I gave Fallen Angels an 8 out of 10. And people who like movies are like, what? Because that means on our leaderboard, they're like right next to each other.
And Street Fighter's ahead, actually, so.
Yeah, Shootfighter just a bit better than Wong Kar-wai.
Well, to clarify, Street Fighter, I scored it so high because it
Fighter.
Sorry, Shootfighter. Very similar title.
Hadouken.
Yeah. Oh man, I should rewatch the 90s Street Fighter. That's a fun movie too. But Shootfighter, Fight to the Death, which I think is the first one.
Yes.
I scored it so high because in the same reason I scored Gamera so high. It's like it succeeded in exactly what it was trying to be. You know, like it nailed it.
It aimed low.
It didn't aim low. It aimed high in that particular ceiling. Like it.
What a clear visual metaphor.
I mean,
it didn't aim low, boss. The ceiling's just really low.
It's the ceiling's fault, really. You need to rebuild this whole thing.
No, I know what you mean. And to clarify, like, Fallen Angels probably would have been even higher because I think it's a very affecting movie. I just found that the B plot in the movie took up more time than what felt like should have been the A plot. And so there was an imbalance in pacing where you spent more time with the less interesting characters in the story and didn't get enough time with the main pair. So I think that Fallen Angels had all the potential and was really interesting. And my opinion on it has not changed. I really enjoy thinking back on it now, but just a little imbalanced. Otherwise, it probably would have scored even higher.
Yeah, if I remember from that conversation, it seemed like Fallen Angels was a bit of like, it was almost like leftover concepts from one of his previous projects.
Yeah, it was an expansion on an idea that was first conceived for Chungking Express, which released a year earlier. And then I think they tried to like staple onto that another premise, and it just, I don't know, it makes me want to go back and watch Chungking Express because I wonder if that one feels a little bit more like it had enough detail to fill out a feature, whereas Fallen Angels felt like it had enough time to fill like a 60 to 75 minute movie.
Yeah. So yeah, that's understandable. I think Fallen Angels was the last like major film that he made before, like in China, before he started making films in the US primarily.
So anyway, that's episode 7. If you had to pick one full episode to revisit from this season to meet your double feature, I would definitely recommend that one. Frank, it sounds like you did too. It's called, also my best title, it's called The Karate Kids Aren't All Right, which I just thought was fun.
It is fun. I enjoy that.
I got better at these as we went.
Yeah.
They're gonna get more and more clickbaity as we go. Next season, it's gonna be we watch a movie (parentheses gone wrong). Police called.
Hashtag Mr. Beast.
Hashtag Beast Games. Anyway, episode 8, our Halloween episode. We inadvertently, because of when we started producing this show and releasing episodes, ended up with like a full holiday slate this year. We had an episode come out the day before Halloween, an episode on Thanksgiving Day in the US, and an episode on Christmas Day, which is amusing. Content creation-wise, those are bad days to release things, but it's just kind of funny. Yeah, so episode 8 was our Halloween episode. I teed that up, Frank, for you before we made our picks so that we kind of both had that in mind, and we ended up both picking horror-adjacent movies, and frankly, 2 of the weirder ones that we've talked about. You asked me to watch Sleepy Hollow, which was a Tim Burton movie, but like maybe one of the less talked about ones. You know, not like a forgotten movie completely, but certainly not the first thing that comes to mind when you hear Tim Burton and Johnny Depp.
Yeah, but I think we talked about this in the episode. This movie has a sizable fan base at the same time, I would say. It's not like completely forgotten. And I'll say this is the one that I watched of the ones this season.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I teed that up and then forgot which one it actually was. So we've now both seen Sleepy Hollow. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun, actually. You know, again, we mentioned this during the episode, but it has that like murder mystery feel to it for a lot of the film. And I feel like with many Tim Burton movies, like how you feel about his style is going to affect how much you enjoy the film, especially visually. Like he has such a strong visual presence, and I think this one almost strikes a good balance. Like it has his distinct visual style on screen, but not like turned up to 11, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's turned down. It's like 8 out of 10 on the Burton scale.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, what did you score this one? I don't remember.
This was funny. So in our original episode of the show, I went on this whole bit about how because I hate scoring and I do this to suffer for people's entertainment, I hate when people give things a 7 out of 10 because it's a very hard score to interrogate. It's the perfect, like, I don't have to disclose any additional info. It's a 7 out of 10. It's okay. And we just kind of like turned that into a bit. I kept thinking that we would never have a real 7 out of 10, but then that's exactly what I gave Sleepy Hollow. It's like the most, for me, straight down the line movie of like, it doesn't really do anything terribly wrong. It's a complete idea. It has strong performances and a good visual like style, but it gets a little sleepy in the third act and the mystery doesn't resolve in an entertaining way for me. So by the time it was over, I was kind of like, this should have been better than it was. It had a lot of the pieces and kind of underwhelmed in ways that pulled the score down for me.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Something that surprised me that, like, I don't know if you mentioned it as much, was there was a surprising amount of like action and fight choreography in this movie that I wasn't expecting. Like the stunt performer who we did mention, I think it was Ray Park, but he was doing a lot of like the Headless Horseman had like 2 swords he was swinging around and like fighting people with,
which was like cool, but also like distracting almost.
Yeah.
The movie was trying to be pretty scary, and then he would come out and start doing just like his lightsaber choreography, but with pumpkin head on. I was like, why?
Well, he never actually had the pumpkin head on. He was literally just headless the whole time.
Oh, well, there you go. Oh, this was also where our episode 8 was our Christopher Walken episode, because he was technically in both movies that we talked about, which ended in me trying and failing to do a Christopher Walken impression that you probably heard glimpses of in every episode after this one.
Yeah, he stuck around. Walken's always in the booth. He's ready to go.
Walken's in the booth. He's watching the show. He's sleepy.
Is he sleepy?
It gets worse every time I do it. I think I kind of had it the first time, which is why it stuck around. But man, not my strength.
We got to hear it. Yeah, and it's worth noting he has no lines of dialogue in that movie other than like screaming, I think.
Which is weird. Why even put him in the role at all? Very strange. Very interesting cast. A lot of Star Wars alums, a lot of Harry Potter alums.
Yeah, but it was cool. I mean, and I think a complaint you had during the review too is some of them are underutilized, which I agree with as well.
Oh, I know. They have Ian McDermott in there, and he doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
It is a bummer. Also, editor's note, I spent quite a while in that review talking about a scene where the Headless Horseman kills Dumbledore with what I call the grappling hook. And Frank, I think you wanted to clarify that he did not, in fact, have a, quote, grappling hook.
Yeah, it was he had a rope, and then they were inside a building that was surrounded by like a white picket fence, and he broke the top piece off one of the fence spokes. I don't know what those are called. I guess a spoke. And he wrapped the rope around that and then like threw it. So it was a grappling hook of sorts, but he wasn't walking around like Legend of Zelda with like a bunch of items in his pocket.
Yeah. He wasn't leaving bombs next to like cracked rock walls.
Yeah.
I'm going to get the next one with a boomerang.
That's a crossover we need. Yeah, that's Sleepy Hollow.
And then one of our more, I don't even know how to describe the prophecy. I asked you to watch this one, which Walken's like actually a character in. It's possibly the weirdest movie we've talked about in the show. I spent the entire review genuinely struggling to follow your plot summary, even though you were just saying what happens in the movie.
Yeah, Prophecy was awesome.
Prophecy was awesome. Looks at notes, 4 out of 10.
Is that what I gave it? A 4?
You give it a 4, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's probably more so than anything on this list. It was very hard to quantify because I want to give it like all the points for uniqueness because it was like baffling in a lot of ways because it was the writer director had such a clear, I think, vision for what he wanted this to be, and it translated to the screen in such an interesting way. And this is another movie that has like a cult following now, and I get that completely. Like if you're in, like, this is so specific that if this is your thing, like, you're gonna love this. Like, and that's probably why they made so many of them. Like, this was the first of 5 total Prophecy films, I think.
Which turned into like a threat that whoever lost season 1, like scored fewer total points, was gonna have to watch all the other Prophecy movies. And I do think that was maybe a bridge too far. We will find some way to cover Prophecies 2 through 5. I'm not just gonna make you go watch them by yourself because that just seems sad.
No, we'll see. We're not gonna like leave that loose thread. We will revisit the Prophecy in some way.
It might come out at some point as like audio commentaries. You know, maybe like a different format for us where you can just use it and watch along the movie yourself. Because then the people who are watching it will be those ones you mentioned who are like, "This is my speed."
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So, and honestly, I'm looking forward to that. Like, the Prophecy is weird enough that it's worth revisiting, and I think it'll be interesting to see you interact with it more too. I would be curious to see what you would think watching one of these movies.
I would have to get up to speed on that first one, because I haven't seen it yet. But yeah, I'd probably watch that, and then we'll see. We'll see. That'll be something for down the line. But we have not forgotten about it, and it was one of the funnier recurring threads throughout the second half of our first run of episodes was talking about the prophecy verse.
Yeah, and I would score this one higher too. Actually, just like worth noting, like I think some of these, there's been a string here that I would score higher than I originally did. You know, sometimes you just have that initial viewing, but you need some distance from it to really reflect on them. And prophecy, it earns a lot of points for just being its own thing.
All right, moving from that one into episode 9. Frank, I think this would kick off with your review again. I asked you to watch 1994's No Escape. This was also one of our funnier reviews, I think. I liked this one a lot.
I liked No Escape, honestly. Like, it had...
And let's check what he gave No Escape. 4 out of 10.
Oh, no.
Apparently, Frank approved means 4 out of 10.
Who's doing this? Who's going around scoring these movies? Who is this person?
Who is this?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just, like, being kinder to all of them now, but No Escape had its issues. I will say that. It certainly had its issues. I think in terms of it being a sci-fi film, one of my biggest takeaways or things that took me out of the viewing experience was it didn't do enough to elaborate on and explore the world that they were in a way that made sense to the audience. So I found that very distracting because it was a very isolated, for the most part, in just this one location film, but it was set in a future world, and it just kind of didn't make sense in a way. We just needed a little more information to flesh that whole world out.
Right.
So, but it had, again, some great character performances in there, like fun action sequences. Again, a uniqueness to it. Like there's like, I'm always going to be interested in something that feels new, feels like something I haven't gotten from a film experience before. And No Escape had that in its own weird way.
No Escape also kicked off an amusing trend where, in talking about it, you had discovered that there was a Super Nintendo game for No Escape.
Yeah.
And in order to flesh out our video content, the YouTube version, which I've been trying to add more like interactivity to with each new upload, I decided I would just play the No Escape game for like 20 minutes and put that up while we were talking about it. Like, so as soon as the game comes up in the conversation, the video switches to me playing No Escape. That game is so hard. I just could not get past like the second level. As soon as it begins, you're just dropped off in a jungle being chased by all these enemies, which is like a weirdly unique element. It's a platformer like Mario, but you're being chased from behind by enemies from the second it begins. Very weird game.
Yeah, I will say, actually, watching back the gameplay footage of that, it reminded me of a scene that I didn't mention in the review, where there's a scene where Ray Liotta is sort of thrown into this like fight pit against this really big dude, and they both have these like spears, and there's like a spike pit or something on either side of them, or like water, and it's like setting it up to be this big fight sequence. And I remembered this because I was watching the gameplay footage, and it sort of sets that up. You get to a screen and there's like a guy standing there with like a big spear weapon. And I was like, oh yeah, it's like the scene in the movie, because he like Indiana Jones this guy basically. Like it's setting it up to where they're going to have this big fight. And then Ray Liotta just immediately just throws the spear into his chest and the guy dies. Nice. It's just very
now that's a bit different from the game, where as I recall, I kicked him in the ankle several times until he died.
Yeah, it was pretty much the same, actually. So that's
pretty much the same. Yeah. That is a good bit, though. Of all the bits to reuse, the Indiana Jones shooting the guy thing.
Yeah. So I just that felt worth mentioning because it was something that I thought was fun that we didn't talk about before.
Absolutely. No Escape, I think, possibly again in my like top 3 of like movies you reviewed for the show. I just really enjoyed that conversation. Not so much Rushmore. That's the other half of that episode. I feel like I spent the entire Rushmore review just like trying to articulate one idea about how the movie must read for someone who can relate to its core, like, main character, Max, versus somebody who has maybe been the victim of the kind of advances that he was doing to the woman in the story. And I don't know if that derailed the conversation too much or not, but it's a very divisive movie for me because I think it was relatively well made, but also didn't, like, I don't know. I don't feel like it fully explored the ramifications of what it was about.
Yeah. I wish I had picked another one of his films from that era, because this was maybe not, I don't think this was his first film that he ever made, but it was
his second, I believe.
Yeah.
Second feature.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's a good distinction. So yeah, that's unfortunate. Rushmore just sounded like kind of a bummer, because
it was, and I think it didn't want to be a bummer. I think it wanted to be a somewhat amusing case study about the emotions behind an obviously unrealistic, like, romantic pining. Max in the story is a 15-year-old who decides that he's in love with an adult woman who teaches at his school. And the story is largely about him trying to come to grips with the fact that, like, that's not a realistic thing to pursue. But in telling that story, I think there were some decisions made that, I don't know, it made the character less sympathetic than I think they wanted him to be. And I tried to articulate, like, in detail why that was in the review. I still thought the movie was decent. As I recall, I gave it a 6 out of 10. So, like, it's not a bad film, but I think what I ultimately ended up saying was, like, just watch any later Wes Anderson movie, because this has all the DNA of his future stuff, but it's an unrefined work compared to what he has made since. So just go literally grab anything he made in, like, the 2000s onward, and you'll probably have a better time.
Yeah. Yep. That's, like I said, I should have picked another one from the 90s, so...
No, it wasn't a bad pick. It was a very interesting pick. I was just, I don't know, I had mixed feelings about it, and it showed in the final score. We go from there into season 1, episode 10. This is the worst thing of all time. Frank, you asked me to watch for our Thanksgiving episode. On a day where we give thanks, you asked me to watch Sphere. 2 out of 10. I have no further comments about Sphere. We spent an hour in the final edited version of that episode. It's like 50 minutes of just me trying to communicate the plot of Sphere and how stupid and gibberish it was. I don't even think we got into much analysis because it was so hard just to explain what that movie is to someone who had not seen it themselves.
Yeah. I listened back to that review while I was driving to join our family for Thanksgiving dinner, and I came in upset.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving! You're like, I can't right now. I gotta go to my room.
Sorry.
And they're like, you don't live here, but I'm sorry, I'm going to my room.
I gotta go to a room, any room that's not this one.
Preferably a cube-shaped room, not a sphere, if that's available.
It's just no spherical food. Get those meatballs away from me.
We weren't serving meat. Where did you get them?
I brought them with me.
Yeah, as an example, in case there wasn't any spherical food.
This is what I don't want.
Yeah. Yeah, Sphere made me angry. Sphere got a 2 out of 10. It's just everything we've said about the other movies that underwhelmed us, but more so. It's an inarticulate movie that the lead actor said on the record was, like, unfinished when it was released.
Yeah, that's a huge takeaway there, because I feel like what audiences got with that movie was just a complete hodgepodge of just what they had time to do, basically, and that with something that's such a heady premise, that, like, deep kind of sci-fi stuff. That one was really surprising to me. There were some of these, like the one we're going to talk about next, where I was like, this has bad reviews, but I'm gonna pick it anyway. Sphere, though, I was just like, how bad could it be? Like, look at it, And then it was just abysmally bad. So,
just holding the meatball in his hand, like, look at it. How bad could it be?
Look at that. It's just a little round guy.
Just a little round guy. Yeah, that should have been the title of that episode. It so irritated me. I did post a summary review on Reddit from our official Meet Your Double Feature account, just to, like, drum up interest in that episode. And I had a lot of people in the comments telling me the book is much better because it's originally a Michael Crichton novel, same guy who made like Jurassic Park and a bunch of other stuff. And a lot of people really liked the book. So if you're one of those people who reads things, go read Sphere, but don't watch it.
Yeah, whatever. I'm sure the book is great. That's not what we had to watch, though. Like, this is.
It's not read your double feature.
Yeah.
The Sphere was bad, and then kind of a double whammy because you didn't like yours either, right? I asked you to watch Memphis Belle, which was a World War II drama. Not sure what I was on at the time, but yeah.
Me neither. I think you were like, Thanksgiving, World War II. These two things.
That's kind of, yeah, that was basically the word association of like Thanksgiving, meatball, World War II.
Is this a thing? This is something, right?
This is something.
Yeah, Memphis Belle, as I mentioned, it had some impressive technical aspects. It had a scale to it. It, more so than any other film that we watched, it felt like the first act sort of promised what the rest of the movie was going to be like, and it just didn't deliver on that at all. It just, from the second act onward, just was this very claustrophobic and just visually uninteresting and not that dramatic either type film. And I mean, I'm not like a World War II guy or anything either, so it's like if there was some element of that there, it was lost on me in terms of like, I'm sure there's people out there that are like, oh man, that kind of bomber, that's really interesting. I was like, nah, none of that.
Yep. Got my World War II dads in the chat.
Yeah.
Let us know.
Yeah.
Why is that interesting?
Why do you, there's better things out there,
Yeah.
But
surely you've not exhausted all of the good ones.
Yeah. And then they turn on Sphere and they're like, I don't know, I'm gonna go back to my boring planes.
Yeah, Sphere's even worse. I gave that a 2. Memphis Belle, you gave a 3 out of 10. So both near the bottom. Quite a stinker in terms of our actual recommendations, although the episode was pretty funny.
Yeah, the episode is fun. The films are bad. That's part of the fun.
All right, well, we'll go from that straight into episode 11. Frank, you opened us up on that one with 1997's The Wrong Guy, which was a Canadian, as I later learned, direct-to-video comedy film from the minds of the people who made the Kids in the Hall TV show.
Yeah, and I really liked this one. I think, what did I give, a 7 out of 10?
7 out of 10.
All right, cool. Yeah, no, that's totally valid. This one, as you just mentioned, that 7 out of 10 feels very non-committal in terms of like how you feel about a movie. But I feel like this one, that's exactly where it lands because I appreciated it. I liked it. It didn't go above and beyond, but it didn't overstay its welcome either. It was just a very competent comedy film that was written and performed by very competent comedians. Like, it was funny. It was just really funny.
It's a funny movie.
Yeah.
Every time we've talked about a comedy, no matter how much we dance around it, ultimately the question is just, did you find the comedy funny? And throughout the season, a lot of time the answer was no. But for The Wrong Guy, it was like, yeah, no, this is just a funny comedy on paper with good performances. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. So I stand by that 7 out of 10 for that one.
Yeah. We move on to my pick, which you kind of teed us up on, Cutthroat Island from 1995. This was the most recent episode that's been edited and released at time of recording, so the conversation's very fresh for me. It's such a baffling one. It was a movie that was very expensive and had a lot going in its favor, and a lot of the work done in the final product is like very competent. Good music, looks nice, interesting stunts, but just absolutely horrible performances and writing that sink whatever this movie could have been on paper as soon as it begins. I mean, just an awful film that is lost in editing and was just, it had no shot. There were so many pre-production hurdles that we detailed in the full episode that there was just no way this was ever going to be good.
Yeah. Which, part of me had a hope. I was like, maybe everyone else is wrong. And it is good.
I mean, we've had a couple examples of that where we were not aligned with the popular opinion about the movie. You kind of liked Soldier. You didn't like Grifters. I mean, there was enough to be suspicious that maybe there was something fun to this movie. But ultimately the bad just outweighs the good way too much, including the lead actor, Gina Davis, who publicly it was known she didn't want to do the movie because of the state it had fallen into. And that shines through so much in the performance. It looks like she's trying to make the movie bomb on purpose.
Which is a bummer. I mean, if you can clearly see that on screen, you're like, well, if she's not happy, I'm not enjoying this either. So
Exactly. It just, there's nothing fun about it. And this kind of swashbuckling action adventure story has to be fun. It doesn't have to be smart or good. But if it's not fun, it's like, what am I doing here? I don't want to see like the guy on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disney when he's having like a bad day and he's just like, yar, whatever. You know?
You talk about like the animatronic people at the Disneyland ride.
Are there real people? I've never been to Disneyland.
This is an uninformed analogy.
Yeah. I assume there was real pirate men. Are they puppets?
There was real. I think this is actually true. Originally they used real like human remains for the like skeletons on the Disneyland ride. Because,
what?
Yeah, I've heard that. Like,
come on.
Yeah. I mean, Google it like to verify, but I've heard that enough that I think it's verifiable.
That's crazy. How has there not been like a ghost story set at Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean ride where the ghost pirates come back? Except they wouldn't be pirates because they'd be random other dead people.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or it'd be the ghost doctor from the Pirates of the Caribbean ride.
Yeah, no, it's mostly, it's I think entirely, I've been on the ride once or twice. It scared me a lot as a child, actually. I think it's entirely animatronics. I think they added like a Johnny Depp animatronic that was not there.
Wait, you were on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride as a child?
Yeah. Really
did I
young.
miss a family vacation?
I think you did. I think you weren't born yet. I think
was
why you missed it.
I just was like picturing like 10-year-old you on a ride and me just at home like, man, where is everybody?
Been gone for a while. Been playing a lot of video games here.
Video games. There was also a Super Nintendo Cutthroat Island game, which I could not get working, so I played the Sega Genesis version instead. And that, even harder than the No Escape game. Both extremely difficult.
That one looked more fun, though, compared to the No Escape one.
The No Escape one felt cheap. The Cutthroat Island game was, like, well realized, but had that arcade machine kind of ethos behind it, where you had a set number of lives, and if you died enough on level 1, that sometimes you'd get into level 2 and only have, like, 1 life left. And the second level of the game is this stupid vehicle section, where you just have to guess whether or not like the left or the right side of the road is going to have an obstacle on it. And it's just a memorization game. So I had to play the first level like 6 times just to get enough attempts to try to memorize the other part. And then I finally made it to level 3 and I broke the game somehow. I beat every enemy on screen and just couldn't continue.
Well, that was the end. They just were like, nobody's made it this far. Like, nobody has that many quarters.
Beat that thing.
Do you know how many grifter scams you'd have to do to get enough quarters to get to this point in the game on your Sega Genesis? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. John Cusack's big grift was actually just financing Cutthroat Island, the movie.
That's too big. Too big of a grift.
Well, that's the one we didn't get to see.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Episode 12, last one of the season. This recap has gone so much longer than I thought it would, but I don't know why I thought it would take less time because it's 24 films. So, I think I went first again. Frank, you decided to end season 1 by having me watch a made-for-TV movie, which I just think is a funny choice.
Yeah, gotcha.
Got me, indeed. You had me watch Babylon 5: The Gathering, which is like the pilot for the Babylon 5 sci-fi TV series that followed a year or so after. We really just talked a lot about Star Trek during this review because Babylon 5, the movie, is fine. It's pretty good, but it feels like watching TV and not a film. So there's just a kind of general acceptance of like the production level is very different. There was no prestige TV shows at this time where it would look like you were watching a movie. It was a TV show, but for 90 minutes.
Yeah. And we learned that it was actually the precursor to our favorite Star Trek series, Deep Space Nine, and Deep Space Nine was seemingly the one that actually borrowed a lot of concepts from this one.
Yeah, I spent the whole movie thinking it was the opposite because I thought you had said that when you pitched it, and I just misheard, I guess. So I spent the whole movie being like, I can't believe how much this movie ripped off Deep Space Nine, my favorite show. How embarrassing. And then I looked it up and it was the opposite, and I was like, well, there's probably more to this.
Yeah,
We shouldn't cast judgment.
Story and World War II bombers and stuff. So
yeah, World War II bombers. Yeah. John Cusack. So yeah, Babylon 5 is like hard to explain because sci-fi lore is dense. And if you're watching something that's brand new and has to introduce every new concept to you as it goes, it just takes forever to explain. Like, I think a lot of people through osmosis will know that Star Trek has Klingons and Vulcans because they've like heard it before. You don't really need to spend a lot of time introducing what that is. You can understand it in context. Whereas Babylon 5 is like, you've never seen any of this. We have to tell you every alien, every major character, the history of our entire world in as few words as possible. So it's like, it was interesting. I think I gave it a 7 because it was like, yeah, pretty good. But very hard to give a complete judgment because it was so obviously just a launch pad for a show.
Yeah. I was hoping it would be a little more than that. I was hoping it would sort of transcend that idea a bit. Because I've seen some pilots, like, for shows that tell a really complete story. They still leave it open-ended, but it's like, kind of like, this is what you're getting. And, and here's our kind of best foot forward. And so I was hoping, given that this was a movie as opposed to like just a regular length episode, that it might have leaned more in that direction. But
it does. I mean, it does give you one full mystery that it resolves that has a climax, and then they give you some lore heading into the rest of the show. You could even say maybe they don't give enough of a lead into the show because you mostly just have this one like mystery surrounding your central character. But the movie, The Gathering, did also suffer from being kind of low budget, like in feel. I mean, Star Trek may have apparently ripped it off completely, but it is a very high production value show for the time. Some things haven't aged well, but whatever. Babylon 5 looks cheap. I mean, there's people wearing ill-fitting clothes, and there's like really good alien makeup, but then some other people they didn't even try. Like, it's a giant mixed bag of a production that felt like a proof of concept and not like a hype machine movie.
Yeah, that's kind of a shame. I mean, 7 out of 10 is not bad. That's a respectable score, but
and that speaks to how competent the writing is in the movie. Like, I'm sure Babylon 5, the show, has a pretty good narrative push because a lot of it comes from the brain of this one guy who wrote like 90% of everything that was ever written for Babylon 5. And it is good. It's a competent sci-fi drama. If you like Star Trek but have watched everything from the 80s and 90s, definitely watch Babylon 5. Maybe you already have. But as a movie, for like general viewing by itself, I wouldn't give it anything above a 7 because it's kind of hard to get into.
That's valid.
That's Babylon 5. Last movie of the season. Also, weirdly has a sci-fi connection, even though it's not a sci-fi film. The Cutting Edge. I picked this one for you, Frank, because it made me laugh when I looked at the credits. It's a romance story about two people from different worlds. She's a figure skater and he's a hockey man. But the person who wrote the film was Tony Gilroy, who many, many years later would write Rogue One for Star Wars and write Andor, the like extremely popular show. I just thought the contrast between him doing all these like really big scale political sci-fi stories against cheeky young adult like sports romance was too hard to pass up.
Yeah, no, and like I enjoyed this one. Remind me what I scored it?
You gave Cutting Edge a 5 out of 10. And this, I will say, is the one that I did go back and watch. I think the day after we recorded that episode, I went back and watched it as well, and I completely agree. I also would have given it a 5 out of 10.
Right? It's very middle of the road, but like not in a bad way. It's like leaning over into that positive side of that even split.
I liked it, but I don't feel like I was missing anything having not seen it.
That's a good way to put it. It was the two leads had good chemistry and charisma, and it was a fun, if not like basic concept.
Yeah.
And felt like a kind of a blending of two genres. Like it was a sports romance movie. So there's a lot of appeal, like general appeal there.
A lot of general appeal. I mean, if you're someone who likes romances, I think the romance elements to the story are pretty good. It's a classic enemies to lovers, as they say, because the figure skater woman is very like standoffish and is always trying to kind of scare off her new partners because she thinks none of them are good enough. And so, of course, when this guy comes in and he's like a roguish hockey player man. He doesn't know what he's doing. And so it kind of creates this friction at the beginning. I did think the movie had some interesting lighting. Like, it was a fairly well shot film, although they were very hesitant to actually show a lot of ice skating. It was very like, we can't easily show you the people doing it, the actors, so we're going to do a lot of close-ups and shadows during the actual, like, third act ice skating parts.
Yeah, which I did think lent itself to some good cinematography at times, where the like stunt performers who were filling in and actually doing the skating were silhouetted with some sort of bright, overpowering lights behind them, and I thought that looked really good, especially when they like would sparingly cut to some pretty wide shots. I thought those looked really cool. Could have used more of that though.
That's what I mean. Like, it was a good cover-up for what they had to depict on screen, but because of how effortful it probably was to even do what they did, the movie felt like it was skipping over parts that should have been more climactic. Like, I anticipated we'd spend more time watching them do their final skate routine, but it kind of just comes and goes, and the actual story beat happens before they begin. I don't know. I think there's more you could have done, but the movie was probably made really quickly. And for what it was surprisingly fun watch. So, strong 5 out of 10.
Yeah, good closer. Good one to end on.
Good closer. Kind of seasonal, kind of wintry. We released that one. That's our Christmas Day episode. Doesn't feel like it because I think we forget to bring that up until the episode's like almost done. But
it's fine. People will know what day it is.
People will know what day it is when they're like, sorry, kids, we got to open the presents in a few hours. I got to catch the new Meet Your Double feature.
Yeah, play for the kids. That's what they'll like.
Play it for the kids. What is our show if not for the kids?
Babylon 5. They love it.
Babylon 5. They want to hear about the history of the Volcar and the Drapnar or whatever it was.
Play the door closing sound.
Play the door closing sound. All right, Frank. That was an exhaustive recap of season 1. I would say pretty thorough. Hopefully, if you have not caught much of our first season, this was kind of a good primer. We are continuing right into season 2, although we'll have a bit of a different style bonus episode coming up after this one. But join us in 4 weeks' time when we formally kick off season 2. Originally, I was going to have us discuss the premise for season 2 at the end of this recording, but because we've gone long, I think we'll just figure that out off mic.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So just stay tuned to our socials. MeetYourDoubleFeature.com is our website where you can listen to full episodes and read written reviews. We also are on social media, Instagram at MeetYourDoubleFeature, and also on Blue Sky at MYDF Pod. And then, Frank, because I think I forgot to help you pitch this last time, what is the website folks can go to follow your filmmaking exploits?
Exploits.
Misadventures. Schemes. Grifts.
Yeah, you can keep up with our exploits, as Thomas put it, at Sardonic. That is sardonicmp.com. For Sardonic Motion Pictures, that is the name of the production company that our first independent film was released under. So you can get updates on when that will be available on streaming early next year, and any future updates about our upcoming projects.
Fantastic. Yeah, stay tuned for that. We talked a lot in our first season about the film festival run of Frank's company's first film, Nate and Mariah in Venice, which was super fun. We were able to promote those shows as they came and went. But yeah, heading into season 2, it'll be more about the streaming release. So thank you all for listening. This was our season 1 recap episode. Coming up in 2 weeks on Thursday, we are going to have the debut of a new spin-off series here at Meet Your Double Feature that we're both very excited about. And then 2 weeks following that, we will be kicking off a brand new season. We're going to reset the leaderboard. So Frank, for the folks watching on the YouTube version, I'm going to put up the final leaderboard right now, which I guess is the definitive list of the top forgotten 90s films.
Yeah, the end. If you will.
The end. This is it. There's clearly nothing that we missed.
Yeah. If you think there's something we missed, don't tell us. We don't want to know.
Don't tell us. We don't want to hear about it. It's Gamera.
It's Gamera. Gamera was the best one.
It's just Gamera. The worst is Sphere. Sphere should be like 500 places below everything else because it's that bad. But do watch Gamera. Do watch Shootfighter, Pump Up the Volume, anything in the top 5. Very good.
You know, watch whatever you want. You do you,
watch
audience.
Whatever you want. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to people in your ears. All right, that's it. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you for listening.